All right. Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers and sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's Newest Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful land of enchantment, which is also known as New Mexico. And today's date is Saturday, October 22nd, 2016. Yeah, I'm just, had a last couple of days, had to check out some of the stuff on some of the other podcasting shows and going through the internet as usual. Of course, checking out Comedy News Network, which is CNN. I'm just so funny. It's comical, man. I don't know why. It's just, how dare you examine those WikiLeaks emails? It's illegal. It's like, I don't know. It's just hilarious. Like, oh, well, we're the news people. We have more qualifications than you, fellow humanoids out there. That's how they want you to believe. They think you're dumb, stagnant, and pathetic. But the truth of the matter is, it's backfiring on them. And I know they're doing a thing on the Clintons on today, so I just bust out laughing. I'm like, please spare me the moment. And people talking about, oh, are we gonna miss Barack Obama? I went, nope. I don't support bend over Bobs to the New World Order. Okay, doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, black, white, Christian, atheist, doesn't matter. If you sell your souls to them, you're just another chump, as far as I'm concerned. And that's how I examine the world, and I do it responsibly at the best of my ability. I can be critical, yes, but I was always to do it in good faith. If I'm mistaken, someone corrects me, I thank them. That's how I've been doing the past few days, and of course that whole Project Verita is about the whole thing on operatives, trying to go in there and just let's stir some crap up. We'll get paid for it. Happened to Zuma Rodriguez. I was watching past couple segments on that on Next News Networks by Gary Franchi. Check it out, man. He's good at what he does, and I do recall he has a site called Restorative Republic, RTR.org. Definitely check him out. You can tell him Loki Luck the Third sent you. And what else? With that, and of course, I had to do a little verification on Zulema Rodriguez on her getting paid, by the Clinton campaign and other sources in Arizona, which it has merit because I took the initiative of looking at it myself, and it's true, she is hired activist, so she is not organic, just another paid fraud, I would say. Hallelujah, right? There's a lot of us out there, we had to save money and do this on our own free will to do our stories, so many of them know who you are. But yep, and even when you hear about women's rights by Hillary Clinton, remember Kathy O'Brien. Okay, just definitely check that out. I know I may have addressed it before in my past episodes, but when you have a chance, examine Transformation of America. There's a site, archives.org, which is like a library website. You could really look into it yourselves. And there's videos, audios, and all that. Audio statements, video statements, even on YouTube. Just type it in. Because like I said, I followed that case. I remember reading about that 16 years ago. And it's very amazing when this old saying, fact is stranger than fiction. Yeah, so I know I'm doing my little ranting here. It's still nice and cool out. That's one good thing about this place. And I'm just itching to head back home to see my family, friends, all my little buddies out there. Hey, I miss you all. Thinking about you. So hopefully, if I'm out there, if you want to get me a drink, that'd be great. Or do a little hospitality, that'd be awesome too. So I'll try to bring something while I'm at it, all right? Yeah, so the elections is actually coming down real quick. I'll be voting, don't worry. And I read an article from the Sun Sentinel about Amendment 2 wasn't even on the ballot. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, wow. So, hey, even if you got an absentee ballot, make sure Amendment 2 is on there, folks, in the great state of Florida on the medical marijuana. I understand it shouldn't really be an amendment. However, I support the medical marijuana perspective, recreational regulation, and all that too. So it's not because one thing I'm tired of victimless crime laws. I know the CCA, the Geo Group, and some schmuck from Las Vegas who's a gaming part of the gaming industry. He sent millions of money down there to get it go against it. He's from Nevada, so you know what? Butt out, okay? You gino pig that you are, and people know what I meant, gino, so nothing be anti-Semitic on that whatsoever, okay? All right, well, enough a little ranting here. First thing I'm going to be doing will be from the LA Times. And it says here, thousands of California soldiers forced to repay enlistment bonuses decade after going to war. Short of troops to fight in Iraq and Afghanistan a decade ago, the California National Guard enticed thousands of soldiers with bonuses of $15,000 or more to re-enlist and go to war. Now the Pentagon is demanding the money back. Why? What's the matter? Because you don't know how to handle your finances? I'll continue on here. Nearly 10,000 soldiers, many of whom served multiple combat tours, have been ordered to repay large enlistment bonuses and slapped with interest rates, wage garnishments, and tax liens if they refuse. After audits revealed widespread overpayments by the California Guard at the height of the war last decade. Investigations have determined that lack of oversight allowed for widespread fraud and mismanagement by California Guard officials under pressure to meet enlistment targets. What the hell are you talking about? Lack of oversight. Okay, I'm gonna proceed here. But soldiers say military is reneging on a 10-year-old agreement and imposing severe financial hardships on veterans whose only mistake was to accept bonuses offered when the Pentagon needed to fill their ranks. These bonuses were used to keep people in, said Christopher Van Meter, a 42-year-old former Army captain and Iraq veteran from Manteca, California, who says he refinanced his home mortgage to repay $25,000 in re-enlistment bonuses and $21,000 in student loan repayments that the Army says he should not receive. People like me just got screwed. Damn right. In Iraq, Van Meter was thrown from an armored vehicle turret and later awarded a Purple Heart for his combat injuries after the vehicle detonated a buried roadside bomb. Susan Haley, a Los Angeles native and former Army Master Sergeant who deployed to Afghanistan in 2008, said she sends the Pentagon $650 a month, a quarter of her family's income, to pay down $20,500 in bonuses, that the Guard says were given to her improperly. I feel totally betrayed, said Haley, 47, who served 26 years in the Army along with her husband and oldest son, a medic who lost a leg in combat in Afghanistan. Haley now lives in Kempner, Texas, worries they may have to sell their house to repay the bonuses. They'll get their money, but I want those years back, she said, referring to her 6-year re-enlistment. The problem offers a dark perspective on the Pentagon's use of hefty cash incentives to fill its volunteer force during the longest era of warfare in the nation's history. Even Guard officials concede that taking back the money from military veterans is distasteful. At the end of the day, the soldiers end up paying the largest price, said Major General Matthew Beavers, deputy commander of the California Guard. We'd be more than happy to absolve these people of their debts. We just can't do it. We'd be breaking the law. What kind of confounded law is that? Facing enlistment shortfalls and 2 major wars with no end in sight, the Pentagon began offering the most generous incentives in its history to retain soldiers in the mid-2000s. It also began paying the money up front, like signing bonuses that some businesses pay in the civilian sector. It was the real sea change in how business was done, said Colonel Michael Pezziani, a California Guard official in Sacramento who oversaw the audits. The system paid everybody up front, and then we spent the next 5 years figuring out if they were eligible. The bonuses were supposed to be limited to soldiers in high demand assignments like intelligence and civil affairs, or to non-commissioned officers badly needed in units due to deploy to Iraq or Afghanistan. The National Guard Bureau, the Pentagon agency that oversees state guard organizations, has acknowledged that bonus overpayments occurred in every state at the height of the two wars, but the money was handed out far more liberally in California Guard, which has about 17,000 soldiers and is one of the largest state guard organizations. In 2010, after reports surfaced of improper payments, a federal investigation found that thousands of bonuses and student loan payments were given to California Guard soldiers who did not qualify for them or were approved despite paperwork errors. Army Master Sergeant Tony Jaffe, the California's Guard Incentive Manager, pleaded guilty in 2011 to filing false claims of $15.2 million and was sentenced to 30 months in federal prison. 3 officers also pleaded guilty to fraud and were put on probation after paying restitution. Instead of forgiving the improper bonuses, the California Guard assigned 42 auditors to comb through paperwork for bonuses and other incentive payments given to 14,000 soldiers, a process that was finally completed last month. Roughly 9,700 current and retired soldiers have been told by the California Guard to repay some of all of their bonuses, and the recoupment effort has recovered more than $22 million so far. Because of protest appeals and refusal by some to comply, the recovery effort is likely to continue for years. In interviews, current and former California Guard members described being ordered to attend mass meetings in 2006-2007 in California, where officials signed up soldiers in assembly line fashion after outlining the generous terms available for 6-year reenlistments. Robert Richmond, an Army Sergeant First Class then living in Huntington Beach, said he enlisted after being told he qualified for a $15,000 bonus as a Special Forces soldier. The money gave him a breathing room, said Richmond, who had gone through a divorce after deployment to Afghanistan in 2002 and 2003. In 2007, his Special Forces company was sent to the Iraqi town of Hilla, 60 miles south of Baghdad, in an area known as the Triangle of Death because of the intense fighting. Richmond conducted hundreds of missions against insurgents over the next year. In one, a roadside bomb exploded by his vehicle, knocking him out and leaving him with permanent back and brain injuries. He was stunned to receive a letter from California Guard headquarters in 2014 telling him to repay the $15,000 and warning he faced debt collection action if he failed to comply. Richmond should not have received the money, they argued, because he already served 20 years in the Army in 2006, make him ineligible. Richmond, 48, has refused to repay the bonus. He says he only has served 15 years when he enlisted, due to several breaks in his Army service. He has filed appeal after receiving a collection letter from the Treasury Department in March, warning that his unpaid delinquent debt has risen to $19,694.62, including interest and penalties. After quitting the California Guard so the money wouldn't be taken from his paycheck, he moved to Nebraska to work as a railroad conductor but was laid off. Then he moved to Texas to work for a construction company, leaving his wife and children in Nebraska. With $15,000 debt on his credit report, he has been unable to qualify for a home loan. I signed a contract that I literally risked my life to fulfill, Richmond said bitterly. We want somebody in the government, anybody, to say this is wrong and we'll stop going after this money. Though they cannot waive the debts, California Guard officials say they are helping soldiers and veterans file appeals with the National Guard Bureau and the Army Board for Correction of Military Records, which can wipe out the debts. But soldiers says it's a long, frustrating process with no guarantee of success. Robert DeAndrea, a retired Army major and Iraq veteran, was told, to return a $20,000 bonus he received in 2008 because auditors could not find a copy of the contract he says he signed. Good grief, these people are just klutzes. Now DeAndrea, a financial crimes investigator with the Santa Monica Police Department, says he is close to exhausting all his appeals. Everything takes months of work, and there is no way to get your day in court, he said. Some benefit of the doubt has to be given to the soldier. Brian Strothers, a sergeant first class from Oroville, north of Sacramento, spent 4 years fighting guard claims that he owed $25,010.32 for mistaken bonuses and student loans. Guard officials told Strother he had voided his enlistment contract by failing to remain a radio operator, his assigned job, during and after the 2007-2008 deployment to Iraq. Strother filed a class action lawsuit in February in federal district court in Sacramento on behalf of all soldiers who got bonuses, claiming the California Guard conned them into re-enlisting. The suit asked the court to order the recover money to be returned to the soldiers and to issue an injunction against the government barring further collection. In August, Strother received a letter from the Pentagon waiving repayment of his bonus. We believe he acted in good faith in accepting the $15,000, a claims adjudicator from the Pentagon's Defense Legal Services agencies wrote in the letter. He still owed $5,000 in student loan repayments, it said. Within weeks, lawyers for U.S. Attorney Philip A. Talbert in Sacramento petitioned the court to dismiss Strother's lawsuit, arguing that it was moot since most of his debt had been waived. A federal judge is supposed to rule on the government's motion by January. It is a legal foot-dragging process to wear people out and make people go away, said Strother. It's overwhelming for most soldiers, and indeed, some have just given up repaying the money even before exhausting their appeals. It was tearing me up, the stress, the headache, said Van Meter, the former Army captain from Manteca, who paid off his $46,000 debt by refinancing his mortgage. I couldn't take it anymore. The amount of stress it puts us through financially and emotionally was something we wanted to move past. It's like totally insane. It's just one thing I say to my friends. I am not crazy about these wars going on in Iraq and Afghanistan. And the soldiers, okay, the rank and file themselves are getting bamboozled by all means. I find it's completely unacceptable. And you got the folks that had lack of oversight. And now all these folks that served, and some of them suffered from probably stress disorder and all that. Just an example. And they come back, serve their time, and you're gonna give them a big slap in the face. You know, it reminds me when I read a little history of the bonus army. I remember the first time I read about this it was in a book called 50 American Revolutions They Don't Want You to Know. So I'm glad I comprehended that. And it happened, you know, called the bonus army. This is from the eyewitness-to-history.com. And I'll just read this here. It says here, in 1924, a grateful Congress voted to give a bonus to World War I veterans, $1.25 for each day served overseas, $1 for each day served in the States. The catch was that payments would not be made until 1945. However, by 1932, the nation had slipped into dark days of the Depression, and the unemployed veterans wanted their money immediately. In May of that year, some 50,000 veterans, many unemployed and destitute, descended on Washington, D.C. to demand immediate payment of their bonus. They proclaimed themselves as the Bonus Expeditionary Force, but the public dubbed them the Bonus Army. Raising ramshackle camps at various places around the city, they waited. The veterans made their largest camp in Anacostia Flats across the river from the capital. Approximately 10,000 veterans, women, and children lived in their shelters built from materials dragged out of a junk pile nearby. Old lumber, packing boxes and scrapping tin cover with roofs of thatched straw. Discipline in the camp was good, despite the fears of many city residents who spread unfounded Red Scare rumors. Streets were laid out, latrines dug, and formations held daily. Newcomers required to register and prove they were bona fide veterans who had been honorably discharged. Their leader, Walter Waters, stated, we're here for the duration, and we're not going to starve. We're going to keep ourselves a Simon Pure Veterans organization. If the bonus is paid, it will relieve, to a large extent, the deplorable economic condition. June 17th was described by a local newspaper as the tensest day in the Capitol since the war. The Senate was voting on a bill already passed by the House to immediately give their vets their bonus money. By dusk, 10,000 marchers crowded the Capitol grounds, expectantly awaiting the outcome. Walter Waters, leader of the Bonus Expeditionary Force, appeared with bad news. The Senate had defeated the bill by a vote of 62 to 18. The crowd reacted with stunned silence, saying, "America, go back to your billets." He commanded as they did. A silent death march began in front of the Capitol and lasted until July 17th, when Congress adjourned. A month later, on July 28th, Attorney General Mitchell ordered the evacuation of the veterans from all government property. Entrusted with the job, the Washington police met with resistance, shots were fired, and 2 marchers killed. Learning of the shooting at lunch, President Hoover ordered the Army to clear out the veterans. Infantry and cavalry, supported by 6 tanks, were dispatched with Chief of Staff General Douglas MacArthur in command. Major Dwight D. Eisenhower served as his liaison with Washington police, and Major George Patton led his cavalry. By 4:45 p.m., the troops were massed on Pennsylvania Avenue below the Capitol. Thousands of civil service employees spilled out of the work and lined the streets to watch. The veterans, assuming the military display was in their honor, cheered. Suddenly, Patton's troopers turned and charged. "Shame, shame," the spectators cried. Soldiers with fixed bayonets followed, hurling tear gas into the crowd. By nightfall, the BEF had retreated across the Anacostia River, where Hoover ordered MacArthur to stop. Ignoring the command, the general led his infantry to the main camp. By early morning, the 10,000 inhabitants were routed and the camp in flames. 2 babies died in nearby hospitals, overrun with casualties. Eisenhower later wrote, "The whole scene was pitiful. The veterans were ragged, ill-fed, and felt themselves badly abused. To suddenly see the whole camp going in flames just added to the pity." That's just, like, it was a lot worse, but still, this is something you can relate to in the main topic, how the veterans need some support, and they got slapped in the face. So that's why I brought this up about the bonus army. This was based on what I read with this article. This got my first attention, and it's very disturbing. This is why, I hate imperialism. I want to see all my brothers and sisters who serve in the unarmed forces, bring them home. Piss on the Pentagon's military-industrial complex. And the hell with the one world order. Okay, this was the name of the game. I know I say this a few times. The United States is a patsy nation. And why our tax dollars got to go to these wars is completely unacceptable. To me, as far as I'm concerned, that's called extortion. And I'm going to add a video on here as well on that, the Veterans Bonus March. So check it out, and you could, and just make your own judgment, okay, folks? Yeah, so I'm going to talk about that. So I don't want to digress and repeat myself, all right? Okay, next one here came from Natural News. Came out on the 21st. Came out yesterday. It says Whole Foods in deep financial trouble. Sales plummet a lot following deceptive anti-labeling position with Monsanto by David Gutierrez. And it says here the financial outlook for Whole Foods market continues to look grim as consumers seeking natural organic products continue to take their business elsewhere. As far as back as 2014, then CEO John Mackey admitted that the company was hurting due to an explosion in the number of stores selling organic groceries. The growing demand for fresh, healthy foods, the offering of natural and organic products is expanding everywhere in new stores, existing stores, and online, Mackey said. The company has also been hit by several recent scandals, including allegations of price gouging. More recently, the colluding with Monsanto to ensure the passage of a bill that bans the labeling of foods that made genetically modified organisms. Company profits tanking. The Whole Food was in a vulnerable financial position even before the recent scandals erupted. Organic and natural food sales have exploded in the United States in the past decade, largely due to entry of new players into the organic grocery market. This broke what had been all but de facto monopoly for Whole Foods. Organic food sales were $11 billion in 2004, but by 2014, they had more than tripled. Combined organic and natural foods has grown to $48 billion by 2012 from just $6 billion in 1998. A watershed moment for organic foods availability, and perhaps the beginning of the end for Whole Foods came with Walmart entering the market in 2014, introducing the small brand organics line, priced 25% lower than its other organic products. Then last year, New York regulators accused Whole Foods of price gouging and cheating customers with false weights and measure. The company settled the charges, but the scandal only increased its images as an overpriced store that eats up your whole paycheck. Yeah, I've been hearing that too. So the same store sales have fallen every quarter for the past year, with another 2.1% drop expected for this quarter. Overall company earnings are predicted to fall both this year and next year, and the company stock has tanked, falling into 2014 to 2015 to a current 50% below the 2013 high. This year, the stock has fallen more than 10% more. These factors left the company in a vulnerable position with food prices as a whole fell, causing the across-the-board drop in all profits for all groceries. Are consumers rejecting organic traders? A factor overlooked by many financial analysts, but potentially significant for the whole food customer base, is the company's conclusion in the recent passage of the Denying Americans the Right to Know, which is Act 2.0, posing as GMO labeling bill. The Dark Act 2.0 actually banned all GMO labeling initiatives passed by state or local governments within 2 years. The government is now supposed to roll out a completely voluntary labeling initiative that requires consumers to call an 800 number or use a smartphone to scan a QR code for GMO ingredient information. To top it off, that bill defines GMO so narrowly that 95% of GMO products currently on the market are allowed to be labeled as non-GMO. Interesting, yeah? Including products for corn or soy with BT or Roundup ready traits. Where does Whole Foods come in? According to the Center for Food Safety and Small Organic Farmers Groups, the Dark Act 2.0 will never have passed, and major organic food companies, including Whole Foods, had not lent their support to the bill, joining forces with Monsanto and the Grocery Manufacturers Association. Other major organic traders, including UNFI, the country's largest organic and natural foods wholesaler, and organic trade associations, which represent companies such as Organic Valley, White Wave, and Smuckers. 90% of the U.S. residents support mandatory labeling of GMO foods. That is interesting, and it's roasting about it because when Whole Foods has something going, and it didn't really follow through. And plus, in my perspective too, they got infiltrated because there are even claims on here about Monsanto. Like Monsanto, people represent Monsanto's in the executive board. I don't know. I believe that's pretty accurate. And I always tell folks, get them where it hurts. That's great. You got to do it to every supermarket, not just Whole Foods. But the problem is the biggest mistake of Whole Foods is they're the healthiest supermarket. America's healthy supermarket. So they contradicted themselves on that and within a period of time. And there's some good folks out there, okay, in these facilities. Because I got there's one in Fort Lauderdale I go to, which is in Pompano. They're nice places, nice vibe. And like I said, but I would say start doing your home. I told everyone start doing your homework more thoroughly and buy those particular products. Then what happens was then they get the supply and demand and all the other crap they're selling. You gotta discontinue it. That's what the supply and demand is all about. And price gouging up in New York, that's their own world, you know. But as far as I'm concerned, they're wants, not needs. Yeah, we all got to eat. Don't get me wrong, but we can still. There's plenty of a lot of stuff is happening. Other markets that sells quote unquote organic products. They're coming out of the woodworks. I see them all over South Florida, and I see them out here too. And even Smith's trying to do their own department. So people gotta look at everything more thoroughly. Don't just get the label. Look at the fine. Do your homework. Now you got technology behind you with the internet. Take the initiative on doing and doing your home research and share it to everyone you know. Now we got social media stuff. We got a great advantage. And even though like people are disappointed they had this dark act didn't pass, but we can still counter it, okay, by not buying these garbage products. So that's one thing we gotta do. We gotta be responsible. We gotta be responsible for our actions. Plus, invest in our health. Okay, including your kids as well. All right. Well, next one here will be from the Daily Sheeple. This is by Lily Dane. It says here, 8 ways control freak government is sabotaging freedom, making life more difficult for us. And she reads here, the truth is that any form of authoritarian control, any type of government, whether constitutional, democratic, socialist, fascist, or anything else, will result in a set of masters forcibly oppressing a group of slaves. This is what authority is, and all it has been, and all it ever could be, no matter how many lawyers of euphemism, ooh, I said it right, euphemisms, and pleasant rhetoric are used to attempt to hide it. That's by Larkin Rose, an anarchist himself. It is no secret that the U.S. government continues to grow larger, more oppressive, and more authoritarian with each passing year. If one were to attempt to write down all the ways the government impedes liberty and stomps all over the people it's supposed to serve, it would take days, perhaps weeks, to accomplish. So this list is by no means exhaustive. But here are the 8 ways control freak U.S. government is sabotaging freedom and making life more difficult for citizens. The war on drugs. Cannabis has been illegal at the federal level since 1970. When Congress placed it under Schedule 1, it was supposed to be provisional classification. Back then, not much was known about the plant. The 1972 National Commission on Marijuana and Drug Abuse released a report favoring decriminalization of cannabis. The commission's chairman, Robert P. Schaefer, present a report to Congress and the public entitled Marijuana, a Signal of Misunderstanding, which favored any marijuana prohibition and adopting other methods to discourage use. The commission's report, while that public sentiment tended to view marijuana as dangerous, they actually found users to be more timid, sleepy, and passive. It concludes that cannabis did not cause widespread danger to society. It recommends using social measures other than criminalization to discourage use and compare its use to that of alcohol. But the Nixon administration took action to implement the recommendation, and the reasons are pretty damn nefarious. Tricky Dicky, right? President Richard Nixon saw pot prohibition as a way to destroy the anti-war left. According to Calliston, recordings by Nixon in the White House, as well as statements from his past to the press, Nixon convened the National Commission on Marijuana and Drug Abuse, what became known as the Schaefer Commission, to engineer scientific support for cannabis's Schedule 1 placement. I want a goddamn strong statement of marijuana, Nixon said in tapes from 1971. Can I get that out of this son of a bitching domestic council? I mean, one on marijuana, that just tears the ass out of them. Yep, Twilight, yep. Yep, you guys say Richard Nixon, Uncle Tom to the one world order himself. Exactly. Nixon A. John Ehrlichman told journalist Dan Baum in 1994, according to an article published in Harper's Magazine in 2016, the truth about the origin of the war on drugs. You want to know what was it really all about? The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, then and then criminalizing both heavenly. We could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Do we know we were lying about drugs? Of course we did. Hallelujah. But government knows best. They are so special. The War on the People is a more apt title for Nixon's sinister plan. Unfortunately, the consequences did not end with his reign. The long-term effects have been devastating to society. The U.S. had highest incarceration rate in the world, land of free indeed, and about half of those in prison are locked up on drug charges. Who pays for the drug war and the associated mass incarceration? Taxpayers. Each year, the war on drugs costs, it says here, $51 billion. I am free, compromise my rights. I am free, I sell my soul to the state. I am free, I want to live like in 1984. Okay, and there is no end in sight. In August 11, 2016, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, or DEA, announced for the fourth time it would not reclassify marijuana. The plant will remain on a Schedule 1 drug, despite substantial and growing body of evidence that cannabis is not a danger to society and even offers incredible health benefits. The agency has opted to keep it illegal at the federal level. Why? Well, it just might have something to do with the DEA's highly profitable domestic cannabis eradication suppression program. In 2014, via the program, 4,300,833 cannabis plants were seized. 6,310 arrests were made, and the value of assets seized from cultivators totaled $27,342,950.59. We need to keep the people working. This is why we gotta keep that as a Schedule 1. That's how they want to do it, my friends. We gotta keep these government jobs intact. Even states have legalized marijuana for recreational use are not immune from the DEA's eradication program. Last year, they continued in Washington and Oregon. Full state breakdowns have not been provided, but DEA spokesman said that just under 36,000 marijuana plants were destroyed in Washington last year at a cost of federal taxpayers of about $950,000 or roughly $26 per plant. In many states, the eradication program money is used to fund aerial operations involving helicopters searching for marijuana plants. Sometimes overzealous and untrained officers seize perfectly legal plants like okra, mistaking them for marijuana. You know what I say, my friends? We got the 10th Amendment. And if not, best thing to do, read Federalist Papers 46 and teach your county sheriffs about this. They could tell them to take an effing hike or we'll throw your asses in jail. That's what you got to do. If the sheriffs do that, support them. All right. I'm going to continue on here. On August 31st, the DEA announced that it was going to wage war on other medicinal plant, kratom. The agency plans to list under Schedule 1 like cannabis. Good grief. A group kratom vendors filed a lawsuit against the government to block the move. Angry advocates took to social media and protests, and scientists expressed concern over whether they will be able to continue kratom research. After widespread, a very vocal outrage, the DEA announced it will postpone the scheduling to allow time for the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, to expedite research on the plant. Translation? The DEA is going to get the FDA to pretend to investigate kratom. The FDA will not actually conduct any research, but it will claim that it did and will say that kratom is dangerous. The FDA will tell the DEA that listing the medicinal plant under Schedule 1 is justified. The DEA will do that very thing, and the war on drugs will shift its focus from cannabis, which is expected to become legal in at least 5 more states this year, to kratom. Why? Because they need to keep their jobs. If not, it'll be in jeopardy. So they want to play the assumption game. Kinda, sort of. It's the only way. Kinda, sort of. Will get us through the day. All right, I'll continue on here. You see, we can have kratom being legal and available because it poses a serious threat to big pharma and pharmaceutical companies. And the FDA have a cozy relationship. One big, huge triple king size bed, and they go bend over for each other. All right. The FDA has a lot to lose by allowing medicinal plants to be fully legal. The agency has collected $7.67 billion in user fees since the pharmaceutical manufacturers began paying fees in 1992. It costs big bucks to get the FDA to put its seal of approval on a drug. Both cannabis and kratom show a great deal of promise in treating and managing a wide range of serious and chronic health problems. Kratom can be used in place of prescription opiates in the management of pain and also can treat opiate addiction. And because both cannabis and kratom are plants that are easily grown, we don't need big pharma to provide them for us. That's right. Because they're getting what hurts. Oh, we need to control the people. We know better than them on how to handle these things. Shoot, please. Meanwhile, one of the most dangerous and widely abused drugs remain legal and commonly prescribed: opiate painkillers. Since 1999, prescription opioids have killed over 190,000 people. That's regulated and illegal, right? There you go, Big Pharma. I want to be just like you, a bunch of blackmailing buffoons, okay? It used to be that the police department focused on solving real crimes, the ones with the actual victim, but there's no money to be made there. While the number of rapes that occur in the U.S. is said to be steadily declining, the country still frequently finds itself among nations with the highest numbers of confirmed rapes in the world. Obtaining physical evidence of rape is crucial to convicting offenders, and that evidence is collected via the use of rape kits. This is my shot of coffee here. Sorry, folks. But it seems that police departments don't really care about nabbing rapists. After all, what's in it for them? As he recently reported last year, Harold Medlock, chief of police of Fayetteville Police Department, North Carolina, admitted that between 1995 and 2008, 333 of their rape kits were destroyed to make more space and evidence in their evidence room, of which 167 were for unsolved crimes. Even with these kits aren't destroyed, many of them sit around for years without being tested. It's been estimated that there is a massive backlog of about 400,000 rape kits in this country, though the actual number may be even higher since many police departments don't keep track of the statistic. Rapists are free, roaming the streets, while nonviolent drug users are locked in cages. Law enforcement departments and the government are using sophisticated surveillance and tracking technology to watch us and catch us breaking the smallest laws. License plate readers can now inform the police if you have not gotten car inspections or comply with emissions test requirements, for example. You would think that's all of this technology would mean more actual violent crimes are being solved. Not so. In fact, despite the ever-growing police state, cops are solving less murders. In criminal justice, clearance rates are used as measures of crime solved by the police. Clearance rates is circulated by dividing the number of crimes that are clear, a charge being laid by the total number of crimes recorded. In the United States, the murder clearance rate in 1965 was more than 90%. The inception of the war on drugs, the murder clearance rate has plummeted an average of less than 65%. The decline is in spite of there being far fewer murders, also in spite of new technological developments to help police solve crimes like DNA testing, advanced forensic labs, and unethical spying devices like the Stingray, solving rapes and murders are not profitable endeavors for police departments. Speaking of that, there's something else government thugs like to do. That's true. So just giving you a whole rundown, my friends. This is totally insane, what what's happening. Okay, here's the next one here. This next one on the same topic is civil assets forfeiture. The rackets allow cops. He crossed out armed government thugs, cops to seize your property, cash, jewelry, car, and even your home without charging or convicting you with the crime. The Fifth and 14th Amendments are supposed to prohibit the governmental takings of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, but the thugs have found a way around it. Yeah, they want you to believe that, but they're just lying to your confounded teeth. In civil asset forfeitures cases, government proceeds directly against your property. You don't need to be convicted of a crime, so criminal procedures does not apply. And because a forfeiture is against your property, you're a third-party claimant in related court proceedings. This practice is, in essence, legalized theft. Asset forfeiture creates huge incentive for law enforcement officers to police for profit. The money can be used for salaries and to purchase advanced equipment and all kinds of fun stuff for the police department. In 2014 alone, federal authorities seized over $5 billion in assets. That's more than $3.9 billion stolen by everyday criminals in the same year. They just want to manifest in competition, right? Yeah, that's right. Law enforcement agencies are stealing more from us than the criminal cops are supposed to protect us from. Wrap your head around that. Expanding police state. George Orwell's classic was not meant to be an instruction manual, but here we are. As Brandon Turbeville explains, many Americans may not be able to admit to themselves, but the military soldiers are paraded on the streets as police officers, police-operated tanks, and a horrifying number of imprisoned citizens have spoken for them. The number of Americans brutalized physically and mentally by those who are sworn to serve and protect are speaking clearly enough. The relative recent concept of pain compliance, rough interrogation, or rough rides coupled with long-held tradition but fast increased commonality of direct beatings, shootings, murders, and on-site executions by police in America have had the final say. And we, the taxpayers, are being forced to pay for this. The amount spent on domestic counterterrorism since 9/11 is a shocking $1 trillion. This is only for homeland security measures, not the overseas so-called war on terrorism. Yet, are more likely to be killed by a police officer than by a terrorist. Go figure. For-profit prisons. Yes, there is an industry that profits from people being locked up. Police unions, private prison corporations, and prison guard unions are three of them. Continuing the war on drugs, which leads to nearly half of all imprisonments, that benefits the alcohol and beer industries, and of course, Big Pharma. Those industries hate competition. All the groups have powerful lobbies that influence policy. It is a shame, my friend, okay? Destruction of the healthcare system. The Obama administration promised Americans that the Affordable Care Act would allow us to keep our plans and our doctors, that our premiums would be lower, that families making less than $250,000 a year will not see any form of tax increase, that we would have more choices and lower costs, and that every American would be insured. Not a single one of those promises have been kept. In fact, the opposite of every one of those claims is now true, and the middle class is suffering the most. Prior to the birth of the ACA, government meddling in healthcare made it more expensive, as the Mises Institute explains. The U.S. healthcare cost crisis didn't start until 1965. The government increased demand with the passage of Medicare and Medicaid, while restricting the supply of doctors and hospitals. High healthcare prices responded as twice the rate of inflation. The history of medical cost inflation and the government interference in healthcare markets appear to support the hypothesis that prices were set by the laws of supply and demand before 1980 and perhaps 1990. Even the degree of monopolization that nationalization promoted by politicians before 1965 was not enough to cause significant cost inflation and spending increases until demand created by Medicare and Medicaid outstripped the restricted supply of physicians and hospitals. This should have been a cautionary tale, but government is not the one to learn from history, or does it care? As long as there is a chance to extort money from the people instead of butting out of their healthcare market, the government doubled down. Also from Mises, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Americans also spend large amounts of private funds on healthcare, and thanks to continued increases in healthcare regulation brought by Obamacare, healthcare premiums will continue to increase. In June, the Associated Press reported premiums for popular low-cost medical plans under the federal healthcare law are expected to go up of an average 11% next year. Premiums are going up faster in 2017 than they have in past years, said Cynthia Fox, lead author of the analysis. Essentially, Americans pay twice for health care. They pay once through taxation and regulation with increased subsidies. The subsidies, in turn, raise prices, just as subsidies always do. Ceteris paribus. And then Americans pay a second time when the time comes to pay for those subsidy inflated prices out of pocket. Expect to get worse as Obamacare collapses. Single payer will be ushered in. If they would have actually terminated the Health Maintenance Organization Act in 1973, it would have been a lot better off. I know the Medicare, Medicaid, there's a lot of issues on that too. But they just brought ACA is nothing more than fascistic health care. It's a 900 plus page debacle. And I remember when Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, talk about well, sir, it's going to benefit the people. And she was like lying through her teeth. So that's why. And I went to that I call it last town meeting in person. It was City Hall in Fort Lauderdale, talking about the ACA, and I was like sitting there laughing my tail off. I'm like, wow, man. Couldn't kind of comment. The biggest mistake was, for that to be honest, the people should have brought those documents in and start calling her out on it. Because you got a prima facie just cause, but on his face, and see how she goes, she'll probably be like a peckerhead, like a female, a woman beaker, Hey, I'm real critical about these people, man, because they think we're just a bunch of idiots. And you know what? When you start studying these things, you just gotta laugh at their face, and we should all bring penile microphones and just give it to them when they speak and go, "Don't worry, this is not a sexual advancement or sexual harassment." Yeah, I'm gonna take another shot of my coffee here. I'll be back in a moment. I'm gonna chill a little bit. Okay. All right, I want to head back here. We'll go to eminent domain. If the government wants your private property for their purpose, they may take it or regulate it through the power of eminent domain. Government officials can legally force you to sell them your property if they want to land for redevelopment plans, for instance. In 2015, U.S. Supreme Court decided Kelo versus London that held government officials could use eminent domain to take private property based on nothing more than promise to generate more tax revenue. A large eminent domain case is currently being argued in Connecticut, and is particularly disturbing. Instead of the government contacting a private developer to advance redevelopment plan, as in Kelo, the reverse is happening. That is, government of West Haven didn't come up with an idea to tear down private properties to build a shopping mall. A private developer did, and is using the force of government to get what it wants. This is not only wrong but unconstitutional. Speaking of government taking property, yeah, of course. Remember, we know more than you. We're just attorneys, and we bend over for the contractors. All right, private property taxes. You don't truly own much in the U.S. these days. Even if your home or car is paid in full, the government will expect you to pay taxes on these pieces of property for eternity. And if you fail to pay, guess what? They will come and take it, no matter how little you owe. And one particularly heinous example is that a woman lost her home over unpaid interest of a whooping $6.30. All you have to do is miss a tax payment for harsh reality of ownership to slap you in the face. Eileen Basticity of Alley Courtbah, Pennsylvania, found that out the hard way. When Anthony, her husband, died in 2004, she paid off the mortgage with proceeds from his life insurance. In September 2011, she lost her home, valued at $280,000 over the unpaid interest of $6.30. Her house was sold at auction for $116,000. In July 2015, Bassidi won back her home after 4 years of court battles over the property. You know, that town needs a good foot up their anus, rectum, far as I'm concerned. Bunch of bastards. Excuse my language. Zulu of Georgia purchased a condo in 2011. She paid for a unit in cash but didn't pay a $95 tax bill on the property that year. In 2014, Lou received a notice that her home was sold at auction over the unpaid bill, despite her having paid all city and county taxes every year except for the first year she bought the condo. Certified letters warning Lou of the outstanding tax bill were returned to the city because of clerical error didn't include her full address. City officials themselves never picked up the problem either, despite the fact that the notice sent to Lou kept being returned to sender. No problem. Warnings were mailed without Lou's name or address posted on the letters. How astute of them. In October 2014 update on this case, Lou was offered the option to keep her condo if she pays $300 in late fees for something that wasn't even her fault. So if they screw up, that's okay because they're special. See, this is why I laugh at these corporate entities, okay, which they are. Some of these towns are corporations. Just gotta look that up. You'd be surprised, okay? And City of Fort Lauderdale is a corporation too. That's why they have to pay these, like, you let me pay a parking ticket, and you got merit, and they give you $100. Oh well, this pass, you gotta call them up. I'm like, no, because I don't have to call up. It's on his face. But they want me to go. They want me to do a little rat race. You know, I just call that guy corporate Uncle Tom, as far as I'm concerned. But that's just an example. I just despise these people. I have contempt for them, you know? Okay, sorry about that. And it goes in the article, dear homeowner, if you're paying $260,000 in property tax for over 20 years, what exactly do you own? Charles Hugh Smith says, if we understand property taxes as a lease from the local government for a right to gamble on another housing bubble arising, we see ownership in different light. If the homeowner owes local government $13,000 a year in property taxes, what does the homeowner own once they pay $260,000 in property taxes over 20 years? Makes a lot of sense, right? Excessive taxation. Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform, ATR, said, American income tax is perhaps the most dramatic example of how government grows at the expense of liberty, slowly, constantly, exorbitantly. A chart by the ATR shows that how much income tax alone has grown in this assumption. It says here 102 years of income tax, and the top tax bracket, 1913 was 7%, 2015 39.6%. Tax bracket range 1 through 7%, of course, 2015 10% through 39.6%. Top bracket threshold today's dollars. 1913 $11.8 million. Now is $464,850. Total tax revenues in today's dollars, 16.9 billion to 3.191 trillion. Okay. Family standard deductions, 94,837. Today's $12,600. Total of 1040s filed, 358,000. Now is 146,705,892. Total pages tax code, 400 pages in 1930. Now it's 73,954. So when you think about this, my friends, even the people who are earnest or work for the Internal Revenue Service probably don't know this damn codes by heart. Okay, they just go through assumptions, but don't have all that merit. So I'm going to continue on here. In 2015, Americans handed over more than $5 trillion to federal, state, and local governments, about 30% of what they earn. If you work all 52 weeks of 2015, more than 16 weeks of your labor went to the IRS. That's almost $1 trillion more than we spent on food, clothing, and housing put together. Of course, the income tax is far from being the only tax we are forced to pay. As Michael Snyder explains, there are dozens of other taxes Americans pay every year. Of course, not everyone pays all these taxes, but without a doubt, We are being taxed into oblivion. It's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. Our politicians have become extremely creative and finding ways to extract money from all of us, and most Americans don't even realize what's being done to them. By the time it's all said and done, a significant portion of the population ends up paying more than half of what they earn to the government. Snyder then goes to list 97 taxes pay. That's 97. So definitely check it out yourselves, man. I believe Ron Paul and Judge Napolitano said it best. This concludes part one of our exploration of the ways government stomps all over us. Stay tuned for part two. Oh yeah, hopefully I get that, and I'll probably post it on Facebook if I'm not gonna decide to do a show the next day or not. But yeah, man, this is what they want to do. It's the Hamiltonian way. If you read the book Hamilton's Curse by Thomas J. DiLorenzo, he talks about these things, about how he wants to control everybody on a financial basis. This we call financial tyranny. It doesn't matter what form of economics. When you got government believes they know better than you, it's irrelevant. It's totally, they're lying. All right. I would recommend you, if you read the U.S. Constitution, Declaration of Independence, even the state constitution on your basic rights, how these taxes supersede those. It doesn't. What they're doing is giving you like I got to learn from Popeye, logic fallacy. Okay, they're a bunch of straw men. That's all they are. We start learning your basic rights, my friends. When more people learn not to fear them. Here's the thing: they need you more than you need them. All right. Everyone out there are natural born, beautiful individuals, not some corporate owned, not some corporate number. That's how they try to sabotage freedom, manipulate, and have you go, okay, boss. They want you to be house and field peasants. Okay, boss. Yes, boss. Bend over. How far, boss? This is how they want you to think. Okay? And of course, 9/11, we all know, the New World Order agenda. Make more excuses for everything. We need to protect you. You need to be safe. No, I want to be free. I want to exercise my natural born rights. I don't give a damn what you corporate Uncle Toms and Aunt Jemimas think. That's how I say it to these folks. I'm vigilant, but I use finesse too a lot of times. And like people who work in these entities, I always use finesse, but I think I give me garbage. I'd start laughing at them. It's like, don't con the con, man. And everyone else just needs to start doing that. Cannot live in fear. All right, this is how they want you. They want you to go. They want you under their thumb, and and they want you crawling your hands and knees, like looking the boots, like Bernie Sanders did to Hillary Clinton. Okay, they're all in that same position, and I say hell no. So folks, start learning defiance in your own methods. Yeah, I might just do this one here. Why not? It's from the Washington Post, and this one's about Donald Trump. As Trump delivers his Gettysburg address, Republicans prepare for a civil war. And it says here, it's by Dan Blaswapo. Okay. And it says here, Ann O'Reilly, a lifelong Republican activist, was in the audience here waiting for Trump to arrive Saturday morning. She remains hopeful that Trump can win the presidency, but has no doubt what will happen if he doesn't. I think it's going to be an egg beater at the Republican Party, she said. I think you're going to see pieces going all over the place. Trump came to Gettysburg to deliver what his campaign bill as a closing argument for the presidential campaign, to lay out plans for the first 100 days of the Trump administration, and citing Abraham Lincoln's famous address here in 1863 to restore a government of and by for the people. I'm sorry. Oh man, I'm sorry. I had to pause there for a moment, my friends. And you know me about Abraham Lincoln. I'm a real critical person on that SOB. Just a lot of areas. And I'll be very sincere. But I will continue on. The speech was a laundry list of familiar promises on the economy, national security, immigration, and other issues. Though the candidate's message was muddled by his assertions of coming lawsuits against the women accusing him of sexual misconduct and his pledge to break up media companies that he said are trying to deny him the presidency. It was ironic that Trump chose Gettysburg, the site of one of the most decisive battles of the Civil War, for his speech. I won't say Civil War because the Confederate States of America was considered a country. I will go on. Win or lose, Republicans are probably headed toward a civil war of their own, a period of conflict and turmoil and reckoning a potentially historic significance. That debate has already begun as the tensions between Trump and House Speaker Paul Ryan has shown throughout the year. It will only intensify after November 8th. Yeah, well, go figure. House Speaker Paul Ryan, what was his running mate? Flip-flop Mitt Romney, right? Unless Trump reverses his fortunes over the next 16 days, the Republicans face defeat, a potentially sizable one, in a presidential race along with possible loss of control of the Senate and the prospect of a small majority in the House. Trump's future is in his hands. Saving the Senate and protecting the House are the priority of GOP leaders. As far as I'm concerned, we need to get rid of the 17th Amendment and have the states appoint their ambassadors. That's before the 17th Amendment got passed in 1930 on the Senate. The House presidential nominee has not only failed to unify the GOP, his candidacy has intensified long-standing hostility toward the party establishment among the grassroots forces backing him. That tension has made it harder to find a solution to a major problem. The Republican coalition now represents growing shares of declining parts of the electorate, and inverse of what an aspiring majority party should want. The Pew Research Center recently charted the changing forces of the two major parties with an examination of party identification over the past quarter century. Its title sums up the state of things. The parties on the eve of the 2016 election, two coalitions moving farther apart. Majority demographic changes are well known. The United States is becoming more diverse racially and ethnically, better educated overall with a population that is aging. Pew's analysts found the following: the Democratic Party is becoming less white, less religious, and better educated at a faster rate than the country as a whole, while they're aging at a slower rate. With the GOP, the pattern is reversed. That's interesting about that. As far as I'm concerned, I see some lot of dumb people who are Democrats as well. So I'm just giving you my forte on it, my friends. I'm not going as a whole, but yeah, like the ones that supported Bernie Sanders, now they're going for Hillary. You're in the twilight zone, man. Bizarro world. But as far as I can say, both parties are in extreme turmoil. By putting together demographic shifts with changes in parties allegiance, the Pew study, underscored two big changes. One talk about for some years, other an ongoing issue for the Republicans that Trump's candidacy has highlighted. Booth bode poorly for the Republicans that if they cannot adjust their appeal rapidly. In 1992, non-Hispanic whites were made up of 84% registered voters. Today, they represent 70% of registered voters. The percentage of Hispanics has nearly doubled to 9%. Mixed race or others has risen from 1 to 5%, and blacks have tickled up from 10 to 12%. Both parties have become less white in their makeup, but changes have moved significantly in different rates. In 1992, whites accounted for 76% of Democrats or Democrat-leaning independents. Today, whites only make up 57%. Meanwhile, white comprised of 93% Republicans a quarter century ago. Today, they're still 86%. In other words, there's been a 19-point shift inside the Democratic Party and only 7-point shift in the GOP coalition. As the baby boom generation retires, the overall age of the population increased over the past quarter century. The median age of registered voters, according to Pew report, has risen from 46 to 50. What has happened to the parties? In 1992, the Republican Party has slightly younger cohort than the Democrats. Today, GOP is significantly older and it makes up than the Democrats, and older by 2 years than the median age. The other big shift is the education levels of the two parties' followers. When Bill Clinton was elected president, Republican voters were in general much better educated than Democratic voters. Today, Democratic voters followers have somewhat higher education levels than Republicans. Trump's candidacy has drawn a stronger support from white voters who lack college degrees. He has taken advantage of what has been a major movement of these blue-collar voters from their historic home in the Democratic Party. Trump did not trigger the shift toward the Republicans. It began some time ago, though it has accelerated over the past few years. In 1992, whites without college degrees accounted for 63% of all registered voters. Today, because of more diversity and higher levels of education, white non-college educated voters account just 45% in 2016 Pew surveys. Meanwhile, whites with college degrees have increased from a fifth to the electorate to a quarter today. Writing in The Hill, recently Democratic pollster Mark Mellman observed, while Republicans are and have been making gains with non-college whites, they are suffering continually, albeit smaller, defections from whites who had a college degree. In the long run, that's bad news for the GOP. These are the roots problems for Republicans, things that remain as long-term challenges no matter the outcome of this election. But Trump's candidacy complicates a finding a solution. His cause to blow up the status quo in Washington enjoys a strong following. His supporters have believed the GOP establishment has treated him badly, which, regardless of what you think, is true. I'm not a Trump supporter, but I do see that when they play the witch hunt game. So, hey, it happened to Ron Paul too, so just give you guys an example. Lee Solskjaer was among those who attended Trump's event here Saturday. He was partial to former Florida Governor Jeb Bush during the primaries, but believes Trump's won the nomination fair and square and deserves support of the rest of the party, and especially of those other Republican candidates. I'm kind of disgusted with all of them, she said. They made such a big deal out of it to promise to sign the pledge because they were worried about Donald Trump, and then none of them followed through when they said they were going to do. It's kind of disheartening. Trump's loyalists want a future Republican Party in which the Paul Ryans and others in the current establishment play a reduced role. Those in the party who have openly opposed or resisted Trump just want the opposite. Some fear the party will split apart. Others, like O'Reilly, think the divisions will eventually be overcome, but only after a period of pain. I think it's going to be nasty until it melts, she said. I shouldn't say nasty, extremely interesting. I truly believe it will be more interesting than the first 100 days of a Clinton presidency. So, yeah, like I said, it's typical partisan politics on here. And I would say this, even if something this occurs, doesn't matter who's in there. They could do make certain referendums into law if it's illegal and unconstitutional or a de facto. Got the 10th Amendment, buddy. What's so hard about that, right? So people can't just rely on Washington, D.C. to solve the problems. It's a lot more than just that. I guess one thing I know for sure, the biggest mistake was they all went after him. You got all these yahoos that were in there that were neocons, that were lawyers, that were pro-imperialism. You got one person, Marco Rubio, looks like one guy goes, he could be a fashion model for underwear company. Get that glam boy look. Just giving you an example. And of course, people think, oh, Ted Cruz, yeah, who's Nolan Void. He's a natural born Canadian, so how is he eligible to be president? And don't tell me because Daily Signal said so. It's null and void, as far as I'm concerned. And so I'm expecting election fraud. I know even Donald Trump talks about that. But civil war, possible. But it's gonna be more on a legitimate basis. So that's something you gotta look at, even on the whole ethnic, racial thing and so forth. That's like very, interesting according to the Pew poll. But I look at it this way, folks. You gotta support the individual, not the party. Find out who's the most and believe who is the most qualified to do the job. All right, and see if they're freedom friendly or not. Now, says Donald Trump has a lot of rough edges. I'm not gonna argue about that at all. He's not a saint. His rhetoric is not that great. but it doesn't mean he's a complete moron. I'm not going to say that because I'll be total misjudgment. On the other hand, Hillary Clinton, she has a track record. She hates freedom. She hates the Bill of Rights. She's a warmonger. It's all on his face. It's all documented. And you got folks out there still want to support her. Yeah, that's a problem. I don't care what party she's in. She's evil. She reminds me of the woman riding on the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. Okay, I'm being symbolic. I see that too. So, but the Republican Party has a lot of issues. So does the Democrats. Right now, both parties, like I said, they're in extreme turmoil. Things gonna happen. Things may burst within those private political entities, which are private, by the way. But we gotta keep moving on. When there's chaos, there's opportunity. So don't live in that fear factor. All right. Stay vigilant. Whatever you folks do. All right. Well, finally, this came from Medium.com. And it's by Eric Newcomer. And it says here, the Tesla hype train. It's under Bloomberg Technology. It says here, when former Facebook executive Sam Lessin pours cold water on techno-optimism, I pay attention. His column in the Information this week, he painted a bull and bear case for the technology industry's most ambitious aspirations. Then he came to a pretty striking conclusion. In a cynical case, the gap between the marketing message and the practical realities is growing, not shrinking. Moreover, large companies have gotten so big, so successful, and so highly valued that the treadmill is running too quickly. The only way they can keep us to tell the ultimate vision and then hope they can sustain the dream long enough with their teams and the market to get there. A few days later, Tesla Motors made an astonishing announcement in a blog post titled, "All Tesla cars being produced, now full self-driving hardware." However, it turns out Tesla's new cars won't have to be capable of driving themselves. Tesla said customers with new hardware won't even be able to use emergency braking, collision warning, lane holding, and active cruise control. From the post, all as these features were robustly validated, we will enable them over the air, together with rapid expanding set of entirely new features. Tesla is rolling out hardware for software that cannot be delivered yet. Tesla hopes that people will be able to drive their Teslas without touching the steering wheel by the end of 2017. This is a company that regularly misses its own deadlines. I understand the value of inhaling millions of miles of data, but it seems crazy to promote the fact that the car has a self-driving hardware where it can't be put to use. Tesla could have just said, we are going to charge you for a car that runs our experimental research, and maybe someday it will be self-driving. We'll see how long it takes. And of course, people are already fascinated about a network of self-driving Teslas. Techno-optimism knows no bounds. It's like, hey, if you gotta sign a waiver if you decide to go, if you let us self-drive, if you get into a wall, we're not responsible. That's what being a little sarcastic. What you think comes next depend on what you listen to. Take Bloomberg's Ashley Vance who wrote last week, Musk lives in a way that few of us would choose and has a tolerance for risk that will drive most of us nuts. It's precisely because Musk has operated his company on the edge of what's possible that he has achieved for so much. An alternative view comes from a short seller, Jim Chanos, speaking on stage at the Vanity Fair New Establishment Summit. Chanos referenced Marianne Jennings' 7 signs of ethical collapse. They are pressure to maintain numbers, fear and silence, young uns and bigger-than-life CEO, weak board of directors, conflict of interest overlooked or unaddressed, innovations like no other company, goodness in some areas for evils in others. Candles who correctly shortened Enron tick through his concerns. I think no doubt that Elon Musk shareholders thinks he's a Masonic leader. This is a car company that is not a high technology company. People forget battery technology has been around for a long time. It's not subject to Moore's law. The whole thing is just a sort of melange of publicity traded and privately traded science projects gone airy. So we'll see how it works out. Indeed. Yeah, so we gotta, trial and error, right? That's one thing you gotta look at these vehicles. So, hey, you never know, man. But one thing I'm not crazy about these self-driven vehicles in general. I know Google's doing it, and some people got into accidents, serious injuries. I look at it this way: don't use them. Be self-contained the best you can. All right. Hey, nothing going wrong with electric vehicles, but you want to make sure it's EMF or EMP proof. Okay, my friends. And you know what? I'm not going to talk about this enough times, so that is it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening to this show. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media networks. Or if you have any questions, comments, or rather, send me information that's interesting. Whatever you do, please deliver your correspondence with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, and Scene.life. Furthermore, you can email me at LokiLuck3, which is LokiLuck and the number 3 altogether at gmail.com. Yeah, so I decided to do a song. I go, why not? And it's a band called Lard. It's a project with Joe Biafra and Al Jurgensen from Ministry. Came out, I think, around 1990 or 91. It's been a long time. Semi-underground classic, I would say. It's called Bozo Skeleton. Well, we're all a bunch of clowns one way or another, right, folks? It's part of humanity. The human element, I would say, okay? Hope you enjoy the song. And once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.